Welcome to the Armenian Sports News Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Takhtadjian, and we're joined by a very special guest, Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani. Jean-Paul, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Just kind of waiting to weigh in here. Just getting the weight down.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, you're in Houston already, ahead of your UFC debut. How's that UFC experience been so far since landing in Houston?
Man, it's been really cool. I've experienced quite a few fight weeks as a training partner or a coach. So to have it all kind of be about me has been really a privilege, because knowing what it's like behind the scenes and now finally having, all eyes on me has been something I worked my whole life for. So it's a very, very cool experience.
Absolutely. How's the weight cut treating you?
So far, it's good. Normally I do my weight cuts on my own, and now the UFC is helping. So all of my meals are all given to me 3 times a day, which really makes everything very seamless and easy. I don't have to think about really anything, and my weight's fallen off really nicely. So everything's going well.
That's very good. Now, for folks who may not know, you're fighting Philip Rowe, but he wasn't your original opponent. So kind of tell us about, how that changed your preparation going into this and kind of what your feeling was with that change.
Yeah, so my original opponent was Austin Vanderfort, who is a wrestler and kind of just, heavy hitter guy. The game plan was kind of similar, but obviously the approach is a little different because the styles of the opponents. And now with the change with Phil Rowe, obviously like dimensions wise, he's a lot taller than Austin was. I think Phil's like 6'3" or 6'4", and I've been seeing him walking around in the hotel, and the guy's huge. So I'm excited to kind of try to figure out that puzzle. But yeah, the preparation has gone really well. Obviously, I think my best sort of path to victory is to make it mixed martial arts, not to just keep it on the feet, but mix in grappling and kickboxing and put everything together. And I think that that's probably going to be my best path to victory.
Nice. And for folks who don't know, you also have a background with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you've been training since you were what, 2, 3 years old? So you have such a wide background and a wide array of skill sets you can lean on.
Yeah, no, my foundation is definitely Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's something that I've been doing since I was a little kid. And I've kept those tools sharp throughout my career. So I definitely feel like I have an advantage there. And then when it comes to, everything else, the last 5, 6 years I've been sharpening all the other tools as well. So I think that Saturday night, I'm gonna be able to show all of that.
Absolutely. And tell me about, just kind of what the support has been like between, your stellar KO, which we're going to talk about at the Dana White Contender Series, to now from, the American fan base, the Armenian fan base, the Romanian fan base, people just learning about you and, being on board with your journey. What's that support been like?
Yeah, it's not really something I ever thought about, but after the Dana White Contender Series fight, I got so much support from pretty much everybody. And I think the biggest thing is, it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling to be supported and to feel that other people want to see me do well. But at the same time, I can't let it go to my head, and I have to keep my feet on the ground and just keep doing the work that got me here. But in terms of the support, it's the best feeling in the world. Just to feel like I'm seen and that people want to see me do well, and that's definitely something that I'm always going to fight for.
Absolutely. Now, I know you say that, but I do have to parlay that by asking you that after that knockout in the Dana White Contender Series, there was a viral video that went around of Dana White's reaction to the knockout. Do you remember, like, friends or family sending you that or reacting to it when you first saw it and being like, wow, I made that impression?
Yeah, I think like when you go into something like Dana White Contender Series, you're so focused on just winning and getting that contract. You're not really thinking about anything else. And everything that comes after it is really just a surprise. So when I got all the love and all the support from the fans and from my friends, it was just an overwhelming feeling, and I'm really like hoping I get that again after this debut.
Be awesome, man. Now, I want to learn a little bit more about you just outside of combat sports, possibly, because, we know that you started at a young age training and, being in that world, but were there any other sports that you were either, practicing in, doing, or that you watch nowadays?
Honestly, growing up, I think basketball was something that I was really passionate about. I remember, watching the Lakers and watching Kobe play. And I would go to school wearing like Kobe Bryant jerseys almost every single day. And so that was kind of something that I honestly wanted to be when I was a kid, but I'm not that tall and I'm not that coordinated. So I think fighting was definitely a better path for me. And nowadays, I really don't watch too many sports. I think the only sports that I watch are, the UFC fights and some of the LFA fights of the up and comers, just to kind of stay up to date with who's coming up and what the competition is looking like.
Absolutely. That's really neat. Now, I do want to ask you about the video that you posted a bit ago of you in the first grade. You were in a it was a competition. It was a talent show, right? And you were in your gi, and it was really, honestly nostalgic to see something like that. And when you reflect on this, being 27 years old, what would you say to young Jean Paul back in those days? What would you tell him?
Ah, that's uh that's a good one. I think I would just say, that it's all going to work out. It's just not going to work out how you think it's going to work out. I feel like growing up, I had a lot of goals in my mind that I wanted to accomplish at specific ages. It was like by the time I'm 20 or 21, I want to be in the UFC, this and that. But God has different plans, and I think it's important to just do the work and stay the course, and not be so obsessed on like these deadlines when you're a kid, and just doing the work, and eventually everything's going to work out. And I feel like that mentality in the last couple of years has been really rewarding for me. Just that no matter what, everything's going to work out for me.
Awesome. I have noticed that you have a level of composure to you, not just when you interview, but also when you compete. I mean, where does that sort of level of confidence come from? Do you have some edge or chip on your shoulder that you've developed, or is this something that just kind of has developed itself naturally over time just because of, just who you've been around?
I think it's a combination of everything, but the first thing that comes to mind is my father's role in my life and in my career. From a young age, he put me in, the toughest jiu-jitsu tournaments almost every single weekend. So I've been competing in front of crowds for a very long time, and it's something that I'm always nervous to do, but when I get in there, it feels like it's also what I was born to do. So I have to give credit to my father for the way that he saw the plan for my career and the plan for my life. And now I've really stepped into that on my own, and just kind of carrying on his legacy and building my own.
Awesome. That's really sweet. I mean, just tell me about also what I've noticed from your fights and watching, some of your highlights. You also have a level of, you know, um, sportsmanship. That's the word that I'm looking for. When you're able to check on your opponents even afterwards. Where does that level of sportsmanship for you come from?
Honestly, I feel like I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about it, but we put so much into our careers and into this sport. It's such a cutthroat sport, cutthroat business. And I know what it feels like to be on the losing end of a fight. And it's quite literally the worst feeling in the world in that moment, because you've put in so much time and effort in getting your hand raised. And when that doesn't happen, it's not a good time. So if I have to be the one to make somebody lose, I'm not going to rub it in their face. Um, that being said, there's still time to celebrate, but I think it's always important to, make sure they're okay, and that they understand that everything's temporary. Winning streaks are temporary, losing streaks are temporary, and no matter what the outcome of a fight is, it's important to just soak it in and use it as fuel for what's to come.
Absolutely. Now, I'm winding down here, and I want to ask you about just the importance of combat sports as a whole, right? Because right now the goal for so many people, including you, is UFC and going for those championships. But those lower level competitions and promotions, kind of like 559 fights, are just really important for helping grow the sport. And I noticed you were at 559 Fights 120. I wanted to ask you kind of about your experience with that promotion as that promotion continues to grow and others around the country continue to grow to help the sport.
Yeah, I think that the regional MMA scene has been really developing over the years. I've been a part of it, for most of my career. So seeing it grow is something that's really cool, and seeing that they almost, I don't want to say copy, but emulate the style of the UFC in terms of the production and the social media and stuff like that. So seeing everybody kind of level up shows that yes, UFC is the goal, but if you can, build yourself in these smaller promotions, it's gonna train you and prepare you for, the higher level promotions like the UFC.
Closing, Jean-Paul, I want to ask you just after UFC fight night in Houston is over, what do you hope to achieve? What do you hope people take away and learn about you and your game?
Personally, I think my goal in this fight is just to show like the full capability of my skills, and to not let myself get in the way of my performance, because ultimately that's sort of the biggest thing for me, not letting the nerves or the intensity of the moment get to me, and to really just let my skills and my hard work and my preparation show in the fight. That's sort of my personal goal. And in terms of like what I want the fans to see is I want them to always be excited when I fight, because there's never been a time where I've stepped into the octagon and not put it all out there and look for the finish, or, just win by decision. That's never been my focus. So yeah,
There you go, man. Thank you so much for being on the Armenian Sports News podcast. We wish you nothing but the best.
thank you so much.